our chair for the student. She's the leader of the meeting. So if there's anything we need displayed or anything that comes up, we can check with her. But maybe we will start with, if you all have your agenda there, the meeting minutes of May 20th. Want to take a minute and look at those through and see if you have any comments, and then I'll entertain a motion.
Well, it looks very good. Mary is always excellent at this.
I'm unmuting myself right away. It's 2020 up in the heading. I put it back a year.
There's some minor corrections I have, Mary, but nothing that changes any substance, and I'll send those to you.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else have any comments? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion from someone.
So moved.
So moved, Michael.
Excellent. And seconded?
Jan.
Very good. Any other discussion? There being none, I'm happy to take a vote. I think we have to signify by raising our hands on this, guys, as well as saying aye.
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 Excellent. Any nays? Any abstentions? Very good. So it's passed unanimously. I don't know if there's someone there who either listened in or attended, or not attended, but listened in to the select board meeting on Tuesday. But my understanding is that they did pass a motion to move the town meeting to September 12th.
Right.
Yes, I listened in the whole meeting.
And anything you want to, Elaine, anything you could add to that in terms of timetable or
10 a.m.
process? 10 a.m. and
10 a.m.
outside
At the baseball field across from the elementary school.
the baseball field. Interesting.
Yep. Going to be on the baseball field. They'll be renting a tent for those people that don't feel like they can sit out in the air, and tent for the sound equipment, renting chairs, moving porta potties over that way. Dan presented an 8-page scenario of how they're going to do it.
Why aren't they going to the pavilion, Elaine?
I don't think I think they needed more, felt they needed more room.
Mm.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have to rent the tent though, point is.
Yeah.
To be honest, Rhonda, nobody even brought that up as a thought.
I bet they didn't even think of it.
Nope. And you know, if we knew how many, I mean, the tent that we're getting is going to fit at least 300 people with a 6-foot radius around everybody. So we really need that space to provide the 6 feet between people, pairing of chairs and things like that. So, but it's definitely, that's a good idea. If maybe we want to do a pre-town meeting forum,
Yeah.
the pavilion could be an idea, and I'll
Yeah.
keep that in mind.
If we can, please, yeah, remind
Yeah,
us
try-
that
yeah,
out
of course.
there, we're just not used to having it.
Yeah, I'll keep that in mind, and I will let the team meets every Thursday, so I will
Okay.
bring it up by Thursday, if not sooner.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Courtney, how are they going to do presentations and speakers and questions?
There will not be any slideshows. There's no visuals. It is all
No
audio.
visuals?
Yep.
No presentation by outside I mean,
Nope.
you know, like CPC presenters?
Nope, we're not doing any of that. Stan Silverman should be reaching out to anybody who was expected to be having slides and tell them to, you can either make a 1-page front and back thing that will go on every seat and go to every person who checks in, or I don't know what his other option is going to be, but it's just not feasible to put up a big screen, and God forbid the sun isn't right and things like that. So,
Right.
And what about motions? Would just the select board handle that? We usually do ours, but did they talk about that?
I mean, I imagine that if you've done it in the past, then Dan would do it the same way. We'll make the select board and the FinCom make their respective motions, and any other motions come from whoever respectively makes them.
Courtney, could we ask you on behalf of the CPC to clarify what, if any, role you want us to play at town meeting, and let us know for our next meeting so we can prepare accordingly?
Yes, I will. I think our biggest thing probably will just be making sure that you guys have all the information you want out there. So I'll confirm with Dan Silverman and see what he thinks the roles are of people who may have warrant articles or anybody else who's involved, and we'll be in contact within the next couple weeks for sure.
Okay, and I think, guys, we probably, after today's meeting and depending upon where we go from here, is that we may want to prepare some one-page background on the various motions that we have already on the warrant, let alone any that we might add. Yes? Okay. Anything else on the town meeting, Courtney, that we should know about?
Not that I can think of. The rain date would be the Sunday or the Monday after, but we're really, we're hoping that that day is a really good day and it's not too hot. I think the only other thing is just keep an eye out on the town website for other information, and I'm going to work with Mia Baumgarten to do a sort of what to expect when you come to town meeting video. So if there's anything else that you have questions about, always feel free to shoot me an email and I'll bring it up with our little task force.
Okay. Thank you so much, Courtney, and really terrific work under the circumstances.
Oh,
I think
thanks.
I speak for everybody and say we really appreciate it.
Right.
Yes, yes.
Hey, so any other questions on the town meeting? There being none, then let's talk about the new applications, unless someone has a different question. So should we just take them on the, I'm happy to take them in any order that you like. Should we, I guess my suggestion would be to just take them in the order in which they appeared on the agenda. Is that okay with everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So the Veterans Home in Dennis, have people had a chance to look that over?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. Comments?
Now, there were attachments that were supposed to be there, letters from Sear and others. I didn't see the attachments.
Right, yeah, me neither.
Nor did I. Mary? Mary, were there other materials?
You're muted, Mary.
Mary? Mary?
The only addition was the very final page on other resources. So everything I have, I sent you.
Well, in the application on page 5, it has 4 letters of support and 3 references, and none of that seem to be included.
Yeah, I know he said he had references from Julian Sear and please refer to question additional funding. I gave you, what I got is what you got. He supplied us with these hard copies, and I emailed you the electronic version.
Yeah, no, it's not in the electronic version either.
No, because it's from this.
Well, can I make a comment?
Sure.
After reading it, the question that I wrote to myself for us to ask ourselves is, how does this help Wellfleet meet our housing goals? With all the uncertainty that we have going forward for people that are going to need things that we don't even know what they're going to need within our own community. I think it would be a project of giving $50,000 away for I'm not sure what, but I know others have not shared my opinion in this way before. So, but that's my take on it right now. $50,000 is a crud load of money for our little town. And I didn't quite understand what we would be getting for that. I didn't understand why it would cost $1 million, because the land was donated, which means that I didn't understand. Candidly, I wasn't real excited with this one.
Can I speak? Mike Fisher.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Okay, so it also didn't say anything that I could find about the selection of applications and whether there was any local preference. There was a CPC request to us Barnstable, Yarmouth, and Dennis, but not other Cape towns. And I didn't quite understand what the relationship was between our participation and the amount of money.
It may have just been that we're the ones that have a town meeting coming up.
Yeah.
So the opportunity was there, but that's just a supposition.
Can I just interject one other thing that I made a note of, and then I'll leave my turn aside. You know, they write in that that it should be a carrot for us because Wellfleet Local Comprehensive Plan directs town to push forward towards meeting the state's affordable housing target. And I think everyone on this committee feels so strongly about that, but I couldn't see any evidence in here whatsoever that Wellfleet, that it has anything to do with Wellfleet or a selection of any of our people. And they give the percentage of how many veterans we have, but I'm not sure how they would have done an initial study of how many of those veterans were at poverty level or below. And they somehow are alluding to that, although there's no evidence of how they would figure that out.
I think it was census data that they said. You can certainly find those things out.
You can find out who's below poverty level.
Sure.
Anyways, I'll leave that. That was my turn.
I'm sorry, my system cut out and I just logged back in, so I missed what was said, but could you just take a 30-second summary? What just,
Oh,
Let's
what I
discuss.
just said.
yeah,
I just felt that they made some generic comments about us donating money would push us forward to the you know, the state's goal of affordable, of coming closer to an affordable housing target. But then my fallback still is that I'm not seeing anything that
really move that
that
along.
gives us anything. And $50,000 is a lot of money for our little town.
Okay. Other comments?
Yes, Gary?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
On page, whatever this is, 3,
Mhm.
I don't know how much they want to increase the number of affordable housing inventory units. Because what they say after they say that is that the Veterans Home in Dennis promotes a socioeconomic environment that encourages a diversity of income, ethnicity, religion, and age due to residency. So I kind of don't see this really as an affordable housing project as much as a way of helping homeless veterans or veterans who can't provide a home for themselves for whatever reason. But it's not necessarily just a money criteria, I don't think, when they say diversity of income. I happen to think that anything we can do for veterans is a wonderful thing to do. So unlike Rhonda, I think it's a great thing to contribute to. Just as I did the home in Orleans with autistic adult needs. I think we're all in this together. I think that I'd love to have a place special for veterans here, but I know that, at least this would help five people.
Mhm.
Yeah, I sort of agree with everything everybody said. It looks like a very worthwhile project, but I was thinking if we wanted to participate, something more like $10,000 might be a good faith that, and encouragement, but I do think 50,000 is a lot
A lot.
for one small town to contribute to house 5 veterans, but I know in the past, I don't know if there's still a kind of veterans drop-in center in Provincetown. It's always been so difficult. So they are talking about having, it sounded like this home would also be used for some more outreach efforts, which certainly we need. But that was my thought about this one.
Okay. Other people? I'm going to agree with what was said. I think we do want to support veterans. The problem I had was, Mary, do you know whether we have received or they have received any other support from any other town?
I think he's reaching out to towns at this time.
Because it lists a number of requests, but it doesn't list, and it says CPC from Dennis is subject to review.
I thought that was a commitment from Dennis,
I'm
subject to review.
I'm looking at page 8.
Yeah, I was looking for the other towns. So I think the Dennis is the commitment subject to review, but
See, it says 2016, so did
it's been tied up in,
litigation. That's
court.
right.
yeah.
So here was my thinking. It's going to be a very crammed town meeting. Is this a time-sensitive thing? Or even if we support the concept of it, would we be better served to wait for the November CPC application deadline and then consideration for the spring? I don't see anything in here. They've already begun construction of this home. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. So we could defer on it now, thereby not putting it on the agenda and taking up more time and effort, and also get more data from them, and still support this in the spring. And we'll also have a better sense of where the world is then.
We could relook at it then.
Yeah. What do people think?
I think that makes
Yeah, I
sense.
would second. I would support that.
I would too.
Okay.
Just get back to it, see what's
So-
going on at that time.
So Mary, I think the question is whether to have them in now or just tell them, because our town meeting is somewhat truncated and both in time and in substance, and that we don't see anything that is time sensitive, and that we have another application round coming up in November, that we'd be happy to entertain it at that time. And then we could also find out whether other towns have in fact contributed to and what the impact is on Wallfletians.
That would be a question for him. They don't have to reapply. We'd be taking this application.
That's a good question.
I forget the procedure. We haven't done it in so long.
Mary, can you check and see? Rather than make them jump through hoops again, maybe we could see if we could consider an application that received for July in the November round.
He actually submitted this request very early before we had publicized it. So I think they've got some push on, but I don't really see a problem in waiting till the next round.
Okay, and
Could we also say that we would like to take the time to have someone from the outreach group to come and talk with us about the project?
He would be ready to do that.
right.
Okay.
So that would be in the December timeframe. Yes, David, I'm sorry.
Just a quick suggestion. I'm wondering if they could be asked, because it will have been maybe a good deal of time since they first did this in May, to maybe not redo the application, but ask them to provide an update
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea.
for your consideration in November.
Right, since the table, I know they've been in litigation, but the table on that page 8 was actually from 2016.
Yeah.
And perhaps those letters that we were looking
So,
for of endorsement
Right,
could be included with the new application part.
And we support the spirit of this application, but both from a timing point of view as well as getting some more data. Is that the census of the committee, the consensus of the committee?
Yes,
Yes.
Yes, anything else anyone wants to add on this? I don't think we need to vote on this as such, only that we are deferring action on it right now. Yes.
Hey.
go ahead, Tom.
Hey, Gare, it's Tom. It's a big question I had in my mind was the whole poverty of these 9 individuals in Wellfleet.
Right.
And my thought process was how to get them out of poverty. That was my thought, instead of throwing 50,000 to a project. Can we ask a question that basically states of the 9 in Wellfleet, how do we get them out of the poverty line or above the poverty line?
Right. What can we do?
What can we do?
Yeah. The other thing, Tom, it's a wonderful sentiment, but our charge is open space, recreation, housing, and historic. So it has to fit within that context.
Yeah.
So that's why this, as a housing request, has some legitimacy.
Yeah.
But if we could do anything to meet their housing needs, then we could perhaps have the discussion. But that would, Mary, when they come back, maybe they could tell us, maybe they could address that.
Yeah, because one of the components was training at this house, at this,
Right.
you know, and the mental support and financial, you know, encouragement. So I would think that someone of them would definitely come and do a presentation, even if it has to be a Zoom presentation.
Right. Well, hopefully when we have them back in December, if we're still doing this.
I bet we will be.
Yes.
One thing I forgot to add to your second round presentation, he had a cute walkthrough video that showed the building in progress,
Okay.
but I didn't add anything new.
So again, they can have an opportunity to show that.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so is there any other comments on the Veterans Home? All right, I'm going to move to, I'm afraid now to move off my screen because I lost you last time. The next one is, I believe, the emergency assistance. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Elaine and I and Richard Ciotti did this application. And before we go much further, I wanted, Courtney, are you still there?
I'm here.
Can you put up that slide I sent you? Is it possible?
Yes.
So, okay, so this is, I wanted to share with you some information that since I did this application. I heard this morning that Massachusetts has the highest unemployment now in the country.
Over 15%.
17%, Jan, is,
Wow.
and you know, if it's 17% statewide, what must it be in Barnstable County?
Right.
So it is really crushing. And the other statistic I heard is that 1/3 of the people who were renters were not able to pay their rent in full in July.
Hmm.
So when we were discussing this, we were basing it on data from May. But you know, as it goes on, the economic impact of the pandemic is really coming home. So this is a survey that was done in Massachusetts, and it said, if you lose your job, how likely are you to pay your rent or your mortgage over the next 1, 2, 3 to 5, and 6 months? And it's pretty scary. when you combine that with 17+% unemployment in Barnstable County, people are already experiencing this, that in a couple of months' time, even in 3 to 5 months from today, that looks like only 28% of renters say they can pay their rent. And about half of homeowners. So it really brings home the need for this emergency assistance that we are considering now. And any questions on that data?
It's logical.
Yeah, thank you very much, Courtney. Okay, so there is a group that has been meeting, and Elaine, I don't know if Richard's on the phone with us, but feel free to jump in anytime here. But there was a group that has been meeting in the Lower Cape, the 8 towns on the Lower Mid-Cape, for the last month, 6 weeks, to come up with a plan for emergency assistance. And that's what this is based on the effort of that group. And Richard Ciotti was our representative from the Housing Authority of Wellfleet to that group, which was coordinated by the CDP. And I sent you their recommendations. And basically what this is for 3 types of assistance. So one is emergency rental assistance. And that, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Should I wait? Would you like to walk?
I think there's another discussion. Okay, so so that's for emergency rental assistance for 1 year. And it's 1 year from whenever we actually start the program. And we guesstimated, based upon our population, that it would be something like 18 to 20 recipients, households that would likely need this emergency assistance. And it's limited to $500 a month for a maximum of 1 year or $6,000 per recipient. And that's going forward rental assistance. The second part of it is for help with paying your mortgage. We have 12-ish deed restricted homes in Wellfleet that the Housing Authority has been involved with in one form or another. And what we don't know is how many of those families will be impacted, if at all, but if they are, how will they pay their rent? And under CPC, we can use money to support deed restricted homes. So that's why it's limited to that group of participants. We just guesstimated that perhaps half would. And so that's the second group of people. And the third group is for helping people who have been displaced, who need to be able to pay their first, last, and security deposit, which is often required on a rental, as well as housing in arrears, because there's been a moratorium on evictions. And as we indicated, that ends in the middle of August. I heard today on a news report that the $600 additional money that people are getting unemployment, it ends at the end of the month, but it actually ends the week before the end of the month. It's based upon the last check they would receive. And because the 31st is on a Friday, it actually ends on this previous Saturday. So whatever assistance have been keeping people afloat is ending imminently. So this money, a lot of them will be facing eviction notices. And frankly, if they haven't been working or haven't been working as much, they're going to be really hard pressed to pay any back rent. and especially if that $600 goes away. So that's the third group, is people who need help with security deposit in the first and last month, as well as in arrears. And when we calculated that, and we worked with Homeless Prevention Council, HPC, and they've been great, about how do we administer this program and how much it would cost. And they've given us a very thorough plan and a reasonable cost to do it. And we estimated just over $200,000 to provide those three groups with security to stay in their homes. Now, the important thing to note is this is only emergency assistance. So they will have exhausted all other sources of potential help. So that's both state and federal. You may have heard of the CARES Act or RAFT or these other programs. So they've exhausted all those other possibilities. And the second big group, that all of those have a limit of either up to 50% of median income or 80% of median income. But CPC lets us go up to 100%. So we can help some people who previously were making decent money, but who have really been impacted by the COVID pandemic. And we gave you those statistics in terms of the dollars, but I think for a family of two, it's 70 some odd $1,000 they would have been making in the past. So those factors, go ahead, David, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just have a clarifying or educational question for me.
Sure.
And that is, if funds are allocated of whatever amount for a program and they're not all spent, does that return to some pot somewhere?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm going to answer your question and then I'll offer a modification. Usually, unspent funds after, is it 3 years, Mary? I can't remember what the time.
2 years, right?
Mary, unmute yourself.
You'll be doing an agreement for 3 years, that's correct.
Yeah, it's 3. So after 3 years, the money would be returned to the town, David, any unspent money. Here we propose that the money be put towards other affordable housing uses. So that's one discussion. But then, okay, so having now made this presentation, I have a modification that the town has requested. So are there questions about the basic application?
Just that, is there something you can do in the meantime? By the time this goes to town meeting and funds are available for these people, they may have already been evicted because they lost out at the end of this month.
Yeah, John, I sent you a sheet that there are a few programs they could make use of depending upon what income they're in. But the other thing is, we did make a request of the town, and Elaine helped me, but I think it is, we had a mild winter, so we didn't do any snow plowing.
Yeah.
Much snow plowing external, and so there was a request to reallocate some funds from the town coffers to the rental assistance program.
Good.
Is that correct, Elaine?
Yeah, it's not much. It's really possibly enough to help someone in a really imminent emergency. But I do feel like the programs that have come down from the state and the feds hopefully would be there at least for the short time until, now we have town meeting September 12th. So
Yeah, so.
it does make it a little
Better.
better. Yeah.
And we have, we should have gone over this earlier, but we have something like 900,000 in our unallocated CPC funds. So assuming it's a September
For the-
12th meeting, right, and it's approved then, we could then begin this program almost
Right away.
immediately, Jan.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other,
Gary?
yes, David?
Sorry to ask another question.
No, go ahead.
So I see the 568 renter households were cost burdened. And how exactly did you estimate the number that you thought might need help of that 568?
I wish maybe Elaine can answer this better, but the group that was meeting, the 8 towns,
Uh-huh.
came up with a total population in the lower Cape, and then potential recipients in need, and then they allocated that based upon population by town.
Mhm.
And that's how they came up with the number for Wellfleet. Elaine, would you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think those were more immediate figures to work from. The census data that's in our housing report is as accurate as it could be at the time, but I think we have to go by the more recent research that was done. At least, I mean, most towns are sort of backing into it too with the amount of money they feel like they can afford, and knowing you won't help everybody that needs help, unfortunately.
Were there other questions? Was there any other
Karen, can I
questions?
just say, I just
Sure.
want to say that CHAPA, one of the state housing groups that we sat in on a really good presentation from them earlier this week. They did a survey across Massachusetts, and many, many towns are doing this. And many towns are doing other kinds of emergency relief. And at this point, we don't see that Wellfleet is doing anything else to address needs from COVID. Actually, SPAT announced at the town meeting that they're making $50,000 available to shellfishing families, which is wonderful. And we've talked with like homeless prevention and HAC, and if these kind of efforts can come through to help with housing, then some of their funding they have can go to some of the other needs that can't be addressed through community preservation funds. But I was also curious to ask if Courtney's could respond whether Wellfleet has received CARES money and how much we've received and what the plan is for it.
I believe we have, but I don't know any of the amounts, and it's mostly, I think, going towards reimbursement of things we've had to pay for already. The police and fire chiefs are really handling those types of things.
Because CHAPA encouraged us to inquire and to advocate for some of it to go towards housing if there was any way that was possible.
I would talk to the police and fire chiefs and see what they know about it.
Okay.
Sounds good. Okay, are there other questions that folks have about this proposal? Because go ahead, David.
Sorry.
Oh, no, don't say sorry.
Just
This is
new
the
to this,
forum.
I'm not even official at all, but so given the magnitude of the need and the potential going forward, things could be bad and catastrophic enough for a lot of people now. They could be so much worse, virus-wise and economically, in the fall, winter, and spring. We don't know, but they could be.
Right.
Is this enough?
David, no one knows the answer to the question of trying to, size it up correctly. But the reality is, if when we get to our November 15th deadline, if the impact is even greater than we anticipated, we may come back for another dip at
Yeah,
this.
that makes sense. Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes me feel better.
Okay, let me tell you two things with respect to the town. We've had communication with the Board of Selectmen, Select Board, excuse me, and with Dan, the town administrator. Everyone knows we have a new town administrator starting.
Yes.
Courtney, when does she start?
She will start, I mean, mostly remotely, probably in August, and then hopefully more full-time as we see how things go in September. But she's due to start per her contract in August.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last.
She's due to start per her contract in August.
August, okay. So we've had conversation with Dan, and he had the following suggestion, which I think is a decent one. One is that this warrant is already crowded for September, given the circumstances of the meeting, that we already have a request for, approved request for rental assistance for $165,000 that has gone through the select board review process as well as CPC approval. And Dan's suggestion was, rather than create a new warrant article, is to combine this request with the normal rental assistance request of $165,000. So that would turn this into a 307. We would have to vote to modify an existing request to increase it to 370,000, essentially to include this wholesale program of emergency assistance for 1 year. And he makes that request just from point of view of process and simplicity.
That makes sense.
Same bucket of money and same administration, and the same people would be associated with that. The other thing that I wanted to tell you regarding, you asked about what happens to the money if it's not spent. So hold with me, but on the town warrant for September, there is a change in the housing, affordable housing trust for the town. That's your money, our money, and other towns are not having to go through the same machinations because their trust is based upon later legislation, which allows them to do rental assistance. Our trust, because we went early in the process, is one of the few in the state that prevents us from doing rental assistance. So we have a request, we, the Housing Authority, have a request on the warrant, which has been approved, right, Elaine?
Yes.
To change from the old trust to the new trust, which would then let us, David, answer your question. If any money was unspent, it would go into the town Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which it can't do now because we can't use it for rental assistance. Because it's a lawyer's dilemma. And I know we don't have any lawyers anymore on the committee, I don't think, but we left out a word or we used the wrong word when we did the original legislation 12 or 15 years ago. And as a result, we couldn't do rental assistance. So those two things, one is to modify the old request from 165,000 to 370,000 to include emergency assistance. And the change, which really is outside of CPC, but the change in the Housing Trust Fund would allow us to then have that money flow to the trust fund at the end of a year if it's not needed. And again, no money will be spent for emergency assistance unless all standard relief efforts have been exhausted. Yes, Jan, I've talked too much.
No, not at all. But, and fine for the change of wording in the trust, but I don't like the combination off the bat, Gary, because the rental assistance for 165 is simply a program that you've been working on over the last many years, that CPC has contributed to, that we know how that runs and how that goes. This program includes money for a mortgage, which rental assistance doesn't, I don't believe. And your third category here,
Right.
I mean, it's a different thing. And maybe to Dan, it looks the same, but I think it's a different article. I think it involves more, and I think it should be separate. That's just me.
It's perfectly reasonable position, Dan. What do other people think?
Hey, Gare, it's
Yeah.
Tom.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I felt the same way as David. I hope we have enough money. But to simplify this, I would just include the 205 and break it down the way you broke it down. I think after this stuff gets voted on, I don't think anybody really in the public really cares about how we administer it. As long as we know how we set the guidelines and then we adhere to them. That's all. But I'd simplify this thing. I hate to see it. I hear what Jan's saying, but I hate to see it not get put on because of, delays or whatever.
Right.
And,
Oh, no.
I mean, that would be crazy. So if Dan thinks it's the simplest way to do and we have no fear of not doing it, then I would just include it.
Okay.
Minister it later.
Mary or anybody else? Yes, Mary.
The article explanation would simply go to 4 issues, that it would be the continuance of the regular rental assistance, the emergency rental assistance, the emergency mortgage, and the emergency in arrears.
Okay.
Okay.
You're not afraid that it
I
would
don't like
fail being combined, or you just didn't like the combination, Jan?
I think that there's a one that's an ongoing thing, and there's one that's very special for this time in our lives. And I think that that's what should be put forth to propose, that this article get passed, frankly.
Well, I think it would be in the explanation.
Yeah, well, that's fine. I just see it differently from other people.
Does anyone else have, Elaine, anything what do you think of the idea of combining them?
I think considering the town meeting that we have coming up, if we can combine it, it makes sense. It'll be up to us to make sure, and the town accountant to make sure it's all accounted for properly. But I think if we can make it happen, if people are all in favor of doing this, it maybe assures that it gets done.
Jan, I hear your concern, definitely. But I would have to agree with Elaine and Mary with special wording, that it then does delineate it as a special, if you will, fund of money that's going to be administered separately and in a different way than the usual amount of money because of our situation. But I understand your concern.
It's not really a concern that it won't be done properly. It's a concern that people won't think that this is, I don't want them to think it's too much money for this purpose. I think the idea of emergency funds brings forth an approval that maybe saying $370,000 for rental assistance would not sound good to people. That may seem excessive. Does a little bit to me. So to me, to sell it, I'm not worrying about that somebody's going to corrupt the administration of it. I'm just worrying about people voting for it.
Well, Mary, did I hear you say that you were going to do special wording to delineate and
Yes, the explanation would spell out that the first 165,000 was the regular program, continuance of the regular program, the next, I forget what the,
205.
the 105,
Emergency funds?
the emergency rental, the next is for the mortgage, and the fourth part is for people in arrears, emergency situations.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I hear you, Jan. It is a kind of tricky, yeah.
It's okay. I often see things in a strange way, so it's okay, Gary.
Are you a conspiracy theorist?
No,
No.
no,
All
not
right.
at all. Not at all.
Mary,
Yes,
in terms of process, would we vote, if we wanted to entertain that, we'd have to have a motion to amend the original article and resubmit it to the select board?
right.
Okay, and the motion would be to propose emergency assistance as submitted to the CPC, in addition to the standard rental assistance, and in the amount of, in the total.
Basically, right.
Yeah. And would we separate the two amounts out?
You wouldn't be separating the two amounts out, you'd be separating which part of money it comes from. So to get the $370,000, you being on $65,203, not 203, $65,023. I'm still not doing this right. No, that's right. From housing reserve, and $304,977 from the fund balance. That's where we're getting there.
Mary, can you go a little slower and give us that again, please? 65,000.
$65,023 from the housing reserve, which was the original money for the rental assistance.
Right.
But now we're adding more from the fund balance. We're adding 205,000 more. So the fund balance would be
$170,000.
$304,977, a total sum of $370,000 for, I would call it rental assistance and emergency housing assistance.
You know what? Can I suggest that we reverse those? Because going back to what Jan was saying, I think the more compelling thing right now is emergency assistance.
Oh, the title, yeah, you can.
Yes,
Yeah,
so
definitely
this would be.
Yeah, definitely reverse the title, okay.
Right, so this would be a proposal for emergency assistance and ongoing rental assistance.
Mhm.
Elaine, anything you would add to
No,
that?
that sounds good.
All right, so
Well, I can move it forward if you guys help me know what the wording is.
I'm just going to say, we do need.
Here you go. I'm making a motion.
Right.
And what is that motion? That we
Mary,
amend
read
the
back.
original article.
Mary,
So I'm
read back
trying to
the
find an
motion.
article. I have the money amounts, but I don't have a model article. Well, it's to approve funding for emergency housing and ongoing rental assistance, COVID-19 emergency, in the amount of $65,023 from the housing reserves and $304,977 from the fund balance, for a total of $370,000. Or to do, act and do nothing thereon.
We also have to amend the original article.
Oh, right, first, right.
Right.
Oh, to amend the article, then do that one.
Well, I know about that.
Well, what, we really have to have a clear article here so we can vote on it. So do you, Mary, take a minute. Do you have the
If I
original,
go off screen, I guess I can get,
do you have, or Courtney has the original motion
I have
on
it
the warrant.
off screen.
So do I right here, but I don't know how that helps Mary.
Oh.
I can't, I don't know how to put it up on screen, but
All right, that's all right, Mary.
Gary, should we approve, if people so choose, approve this request in one motion and then a second motion to then amend, to include, to amend the original,
I
or
thought it
whatever
was the other
number it is,
way.
to include this?
I thought it was the other way around.
I think we,
Have to amend first, I think.
Okay.
Well, I don't know.
Well, first you want to approve the 205,000.
That's
Okay,
what I
you're
would
right.
think.
Okay, you're
We
right.
haven't voted that yet.
okay, so let's, that seems to make some sense because then we have the language in its entirety that we can approve and incorporate into the revised motion.
Okay.
So
Saying.
would someone like to move as submitted the application for 205,000 for emergency assistance?
I would like to do
So
that.
moved, Michael.
Thank you, Michael. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Okay, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye and raising their hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Very good.
Tom, I.
Geraldine, we're assuming that we can hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me? Can you hear me?
We can
Yes.
hear you, but we can't see you. So,
Oh, I didn't realize. Oh, I'm sorry. So I'm
That's
saying
all
aye.
aye, excellent.
Was that
Um,
unanimous?
Are there any noes? Or any abstentions? Very good. So the application as submitted is passed and unanimously. Now we would entertain a second motion.
Okay, I'm prepared to read it. I don't have a good explanation summary that we talked about with
That's
the parts, but let me read it and somebody can just say that's the motion they want to do, I think. So
okay.
this would be emergency housing, COVID-19 emergency housing and regular rental assistance program to see if the town will vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44B, to appropriate $65,023 from the Community Preservation Budgeted Housing Reserve and $304,977 from the Community Preservation Fund balance for a total of $370,000 to the Wellfleet Housing Authority to provide funding for the rental assistance program for Wellfleet households for 1 to 3 years. Oh, that's the regular rental, and COVID-19 emergency assistance or to do thereon.
I think we have to switch those at the end, back to at the beginning, we
First-
referenced it, yeah.
Right,
So we should
first,
reference the emergency first and
first
then.
emergency and then the,
So we're not specifying to the public that we're asking for 165 and 205 for these two programs, but that's within the text of the.
well, then we would in the
application.
summary, the
Exactly
section,
right.
the section that explains it.
Right, and and Courtney will tell us how we will best be able to do that at town meeting if we're actually not making a presentation. Maybe we can work with whichever select board person is making that presentation.
But don't we have to at least say to amend Article so-and-so to do this?
Yes, what's Courtney? Are you there?
Yeah.
Courtney,
Yeah.
the 165 is what proposed
ahead.
on the warrant?
I thought Courtney said that we really had to write sheets out of explanation.
No, I'm just trying to identify it,
Oh,
Jan.
what article number it was?
Yeah, what article is it on the
Oh, that
warrant that
were
they just
amended.
published?
Oh, I have that, actually.
The one that came out this morning, Jan?
Oh, no.
Which article number?
Yeah, the proposed article number X.
Let me, I just updated it on the website.
No number.
Let me see here. I think it is, let's see. Oh. Um, let's see,
Is that called vibrato?
Wait, can we just say the current article for rental assistance?
I thought it was a quick question. I apologize.
I don't have any numbers. I don't even have the new warrant.
All right, so the previous article, how about however we identified that, the previous rental assistance article be modified.
Previously voted.
Right, be modified.
and they're all usually grouped together, right? The CPC ones?
Yes.
They are. All right, while she looks for that, we'll simply identify it as
Okay.
So it's a second.
What was the amount, Gary?
165.
Gary?
165.
Yeah, I'm,
I can hear you. Can you not hear me? Oh dear.
can you hear me now?
Can
No.
somebody else speak? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me, Gary?
I can hear you, Gary. And
Oh.
I can hear.
Yes, we can hear you, Courtney. Now we can.
All right, I'm having a connection.
All right, don't worry about it. All right, we will.
One
we-
second, I'll find the article number.
All right.
It's the first one after the administrative one.
All right. I apologize. We don't need to identify it as such. Let us simply say that the previously voted rental assistance article for 165,000 be amended
Mm-hmm,
as described.
mm-hmm,
Is that sufficient for folks?
yes.
Okay. Is there a move to do that?
I move to.
Is there a second?
I second.
Excellent. Is there further discussion? There being none, all those in favor of modifying the previously voted article signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Any noes? Any abstentions? Okay.
Article
So
12. I was talking to you on my phone and nobody could hear me, so I had to switch over. I'm trying to do like a bunch of things besides this, so sorry about that.
I'm sure
It's
we're
Article
not the
12.
only item on your plate. So
That's good.
thank you so much, Courtney.
Yeah.
Okay, the previous or the proposed Article 12 being modified. All right, so we have voted that, and Elaine and Mary and I will work on the wording as well as the description, and we will forward that to the membership as soon as we get it. Is there any other discussion of this article?
Just like to say thank you for your good work on this. I think it's very impressive.
Well, thank you. Thank Richard Ciotti as well as Elaine.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for your support.
Yes, thank you so much.
It will make a difference.
It really will. It's gratifying to see so many towns on the Cape doing a similar thing. Okay, so the next item we have is, well, Mary, we didn't receive two that we thought we would receive, so we don't have to worry about
That's right.
Those-
Didn't
okay.
submit.
So the next one that we actually did receive was the Modern House Trust. Did everyone have a chance to read this?
Yes.
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 Okay. I'd entertain discussion about it.
Are we going to get a chance to talk to the applicants, or is this it?
Michael, if we decide that we want to get more information, we have tentatively scheduled a meeting for the 22nd, and our hope is that we can still get something added to the town warrant, which was the other reason for modifying the other one, was to make sure that we got it onto the warrant for this town meeting. And our hope is if we think it's necessary, we will request it, and then we will have the 22nd to have a presentation.
Because, I mean, I'm sympathetic for the application, but I did have some questions.
Yes, I think everyone perhaps does. Jan, were you going to say something?
I was going to ask Mary if she can tell us offhand how much we've given in the past to the, I know we've given money to the housing.
We gave for the Google Gibbs house, which I think 100,000, I can check in a minute. And we gave for the Hatch Cottage. And they
Right.
did their own fundraising for the Weidlinger House and the Kohler, the
one they just did.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
So
we
gave to
contributed
two. So we gave at least 200, 100 and 100. I can double check on that first one.
200 and 100, you think?
No, I think we gave 100 and 100. I know we gave 100 for the Hatch Cottage. I'm not sure what we gave for Google Gibbs. I can check back.
Okay. I'm curious.
No more than 100 though.
Okay.
A total of 200,000 so far.
So 200,000 is a very large number. I guess that's what I'm getting at.
What they're asking now, I think it's because of the large amount of the property that they're trying to get.
Right.
Really working on big donors and any donors. I think we're probably more of a leverage issue, to get support.
Town support.
Right.
Does anybody have any history on the Breuer House? I guess I don't know if it's open to the public. Is it? I mean, I hate to show my ignorance. I just don't know what it is.
It's public now.
Did you read the back of this application?
It's the premier Breuer house designed by Breuer, owned by the family.
Right.
And eccentric son is selling it. He doesn't come here anymore. And it's got museum quality stuff in it of artwork and modern house material.
Right.
Oh, and
It's been privately owned.
Privately owned by the family.
Yeah.
4 acres on Williams Pond with frontage, with usage of Slough Pond and Truro and views of Gull, the 3 ponds.
So the use of it would be
Well,
totally.
he's more excited about the building than the views, but.
So the use of it becomes totally different in terms that it's becoming a public.
It would become probably
if you will.
public, and like the others, it would have a restriction, a historic preservation deed restriction placed upon it.
I also know everybody that's in extremely poor condition.
Yeah.
That's right.
Very,
That's-
very poor condition. And
That's
it's
another reason for
gonna
wondering
take
why.
a massive amount of money to bring it up to snuff. It's going to have to be apparently nearly rebuilt in many ways.
They do that, and they use local people
Right.
for their restorations. At least they have in the others.
Yeah, hey, this is Tom. Basically, we had this presentation in front of the historical committee a couple months ago. And yeah, this is a shame at what the son let the house go. But my thought on this thing and why we directed the guy to come to the CPC was it's almost if we can get funding and they can get additional funding and renovate this, there's a lot, like Mary said, there's a lot of art there. There's a lot of historical stuff in that home. You know, I envision a nice little museum that people would come and want to walk through and get an education.
Yeah, I have a quite historical question, I guess, quickly, if I could. Have there ever been cases where you give money to something and it's contingent, the whole project is contingent on raising lots of other money and they aren't able to do it? What happens to your money?
Yeah,
Get it back.
right. In
Yeah.
theory, we get it back.
Yeah.
You raised, David, the question that I really had was the money that I love the project.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, what's not to love, but, and I know the Modern House Trust has done a fabulous job with those houses in Wellfleet. My concern is they're asking for the renovation money before they own the property.
Right.
And they need to raise $2 million to buy the property, or at least funding for $2 million worth of mortgage before they can ever touch it. And again, we have a crowded agenda, and I don't know that this is critical that we pass it now, as sympathetic as we may be. And are we better waiting until, and frankly, are they better waiting until they have a clearer line of sight to additional funding? Tom, when they presented, did they have any sense of their ability to raise the other $2 million? Not the other, the $2 million.
Yeah, he felt confident that he could raise it. But again, we question the whole COVID thing in today's environment.
Yeah.
You know, there was a lot of concern.
Yeah. Do we want to put this on the agenda for the September meeting in the current environment? I have a question about that.
Yeah. You know, it occurs to me that it's a little bit like the conversation we had about previously about the veterans home. There is something about we are in fact in an emergency situation now all over the country, including the Cape. It's an emergency, pure and simple, and it could get worse. So it forces one to think about priorities in a new way. In my mind, it's none of my business. I'm a visitor, but you know, and I completely am in favor of this project, 100%. Meryl's on the historical commission, and she's talked to me about this. I'm totally there, but I just worry about what if the need for emergency housing by November, December, January goes through the roof. It's a priority emergency dilemma for me. That's just my thoughts.
Mhm.
I agree with that.
They just gave an additional $205,000 for housing, and this proposes that we give $200,000 to renovate a home. I personally, I wish they'd come back. I don't think that it looks really great at this point in history.
Would
Go ahead, Bob.
it make any sense to give a very small amount now to show town support with the encouragement they come back once they get resolved, or come back in the future for future applications? I agree that to put that amount of money in now would be just something like could create a fire.
Yeah.
It's like a tinderbox for a fire.
Yeah. I'm afraid this, right.
Yeah, what's wrong with coming back to it? It will give them some opportunity, time to own the property. I mean, I'm seeing here that, they may have more donors. Historic New England owns the one in Lincoln, the Gropius House. Cultural Council, this is a perfect grant for them. From the state. My suggestion would be we should ask them to come back when they have more information. Could be kind of awkward for us to propose now. It's just me.
I finally found my data It was 100,000 for Kugel Gips, 100,000 for Hatch,
Okay,
which is what I thought.
okay.
Gary, can we position this thing where we gotta have a better feel on whether they can purchase it or not?
Yes, I think I shouldn't speak for we. I am supportive, and what I hear people saying is that they are generally supportive. The
Yes.
amount of the support may be in question, as
Yeah.
well as the timing of the support.
Mm.
Correct.
So this is an endorsement, but at the same time, there are questions and also there are concerns.
Right.
Exactly.
And if they came back to us with more information and a better roadmap of how they're going to actually buy the property, because the money to renovate, won't be spent until they have completed
Until they own
the
it.
sale transaction, which God only knows how long it could be. To answer Michael's question or David's question about if we were to commit the money now, how long would we give them to complete the transaction?
Mm.
Michael, did you have another comment on that?
No, I guess the only pressing thing was, as I understand it, the current owner is interested in selling it, so that
Yeah.
if this didn't go through and it went on the market, then you could get someone who would just tear it down. It's
Right.
4.5 acres of beautiful land and put up something else.
Yep. Mary,
Yes?
we do have a tentative meeting scheduled for the 22nd if we need to. If
Mm-hmm.
we could
Yes.
ask Peter how time sensitive a show of support now would be, knowing that there's reluctance to give him quite what he wants. And is he better served and is the need such that he could wait until November or December for this request? Does that make sense for folks?
I think it would receive a more positive response at the spring town meeting.
I think so too.
And I think we want a positive response, but also maybe not $200,000.
Right.
Also.
Does he need this in any way to help him buy the property?
Yeah.
Because I'd hate to see it torn down. That would be a terrible loss.
Right.
Yeah.
Mary, can
Well,
you?
could the historical commission put the 18-month hold on demolition?
Well, they could. My understanding is the 12-month wait on historical demolition would be in effect, but that doesn't stop someone from buying it. It just stops them from tearing it down.
Yeah, Gary, the 12-month went to 18-month now.
18, excuse me, I stand corrected, but
But yeah,
it is after the sale, not postponing the sale, right?
it would be the new owners coming forward. Right, so it'd be after the sale.
After the sale, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the new owners would go to the building inspector. The building inspector would direct it to the historical committee. Merrill, Lydia, myself, a few others would then vote on it, get an understanding, and then probably we would, odds are we would do a demolition delay of 18 months.
Well, if we could talk to the applicant, that would clarify some of these points.
Or do you want to have him back on the 22nd, or do you want to have him back on the 22nd?
If you wait.
Well, I would like to get the information before I voted one way or the other.
Okay.
If you have him on the 22nd, it's going to be very, very tight for this upcoming meeting. So I don't see, the urgency of the meeting part if you'd entertain him again in the next round.
Mary,
I can't see us proposing now, under the circumstances, to give him $200,000 from CPC money. Actually, even if it were critical. So I don't know how it helps us to have him come and talk to us. The only thing would be if there was some hold, like if he needed some pledge from CPC, say $50,000 in order, goodwill money, in order to help him get a mortgage or whatever. That would be the only extenuating circumstance I could see to make it go forward now.
Other people?
To me, it's just a no-go at this time. There's just too many other priorities. I think it would look really bad at town meeting. I think the guy doesn't own it. There's just too much information outstanding. I think it warrants them coming back at another time when it makes more sense to us. Generally, there's another thought that comes to my mind, which is kind of weird. I shouldn't even be saying it out loud. Is that it's like, given that this is such a, I mean, as David had said, an emergent time, and it really is an emergent time. I think it almost, I mean, even though it's a priority and we all like it, I think it seems almost irresponsible at this time to kind of consider it somehow when we don't know what other needs we're going to have that could be a lot more imminent. And that's just a thought in my head.
Yeah.
I think that this project, I would hope that timing would work for them to come back, because it is an economic engine in many ways. As Mary said, they employ local people. It attracts people, it attracts a tourism from all over the world. So it has a value to the town that I think, but I think at this time,
right,
that value is harder to have people
justify. Yeah.
So, other comments that people have?
Well,
Go ahead, Bob.
it is not only economic, it is a historical priority. And I think that I agree that we shouldn't bring it forth with $200,000 now. And I do think it's very important to assess where we are now and how much of that is because of the lack of study of history, the lack of appreciation for what we have, the lack of community binding themselves together, that we don't want to say that this is not a really important issue. Maybe if we had more awareness and respect for history, we wouldn't have the president we have now, who has not.
I think we should. I
Didn't
think
you
we
used to
should let
teach
go.
history? Am I remembering correctly that you used to be a history teacher or an English teacher, Bob?
English teacher.
English.
I think we should propose that we move up the national elections next week. Right now.
I don't want to say, Rhonda, but that may be slightly outside the scope of our mandate.
Just slightly.
It's unfortunate.
All right. So I think I hear you saying, and I'm happy to take other comments, but with that, we absolutely support this. The question is, how timely is the need now for the 200,000? We'd like to get some more details on that Mary will communicate with him about it, and that we will suggest that, again, that we keep this on file and revisit it in our November 15th deadline, application deadline. And I would say that I give the Modern House Trust, Peter, the opportunity, if it turns out that there's some compelling time issue with respect to this money, then perhaps we'll keep the 22nd meeting on the books for now, with the proviso that we could potentially revisit it if there's a compelling reason. Does that fit with what people thinking?
Very good.
Yes, I agree.
Yes.
Very good. All right. So Mary, you got that?
Yeah, so I'll contact Peter, and
Yeah.
he's standing by for the 22nd if we want him.
Right. So I would say unless he comes back with something, Mary, that convinces you that there's a time sensitivity to this, that would make sense for us to revisit it, but that the sentiment is probably not now.
Not now.
Yeah, not as much as we support the
Yep.
concept. And despite Bob's laudatory comments. All right. Anything else on the Modern House Trust? Okay. So I think we're at the end of our agenda. I would only say I am going to keep the meeting on the 22nd tentatively on the agenda, and Mary will send out an announcement whether we have a meeting or not. We'll communicate with the select board and the town administrator about the really only one article change that we are proposing from this round of grants.
Gary?
Mary, go ahead.
Well, we were just going to very briefly review some of those projects that were completed or near complete. The pavilion.
All right, go.
At
go
Durkee
for it.
Lane. Well, I know Rhonda can do better with the pavilion, but it's up, it's beautiful. They did it in 2 days. I have a lot of pictures of it going up. Then the Durkee Lane, they've had the, I guess the prayer devotion ceremony, but they were all invited virtually to the dedication Tuesday, I think. Is that right?
Right, yeah, at 4 o'clock.
4.
Yeah, and I don't know, I hope all of you may have gotten the Housing Authority newsletter that came out.
Yes.
yesterday.
That was
Yeah,
great.
thank you.
Thank you for that.
You know, just a really heartfelt
That's wonderful.
celebration of Durkee Lane.
Mary, why don't you tell about the signs now that we're getting from the DPW?
Oh, well, yeah, we're planning it. We have,
Okay.
yeah. Well,
I made it pre-announcing.
Becky and I have discussed about signage. One sign that covers all 3, you know, they always like the skateboard park sign so much, the temporary sign, they kept it. But one sign that covers the pavilion, the tennis courts, and the skateboard park, we're designing, and it's the DPW can do these signs, so we're hoping to save some money. It might not save time, but it will save money.
I should also say that you may have noticed that Rec was going to put in another grant, and
Yeah.
apparently Angel got a bit confused. So he didn't, but point is that now that it's up and we're seeing it visually, they're feeling that it needs a floor. So they're going to be, Mike has directed me for them to go to Hillary to find out whether it could be a cement, or right now it's just wood chips. So something that's sturdier so that it can be used.
And they could come with a really good, strong application with all the details in November.
Oh, sure.
I can only hold their hand.
Oh, we could do November or October. We moved it last year back to October to give the whole cycle more time. We're saying November, but
It's October 15, right?
Yeah.
So we can meet the end of October and the end of November because we don't like to meet in December.
well, I want to tell these people, Peter and Adam,
Yeah.
the veterans and Angel and Becky, October.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, why
Are
don't
we going to stay to October 15th? Question.
I was just going to say is why don't we tentatively say that the deadline is anticipated to be October 15th, and we'll be back to them. And why don't we have a meeting after town meeting? And we can both review the what happened at town meeting, as well as, and frankly, we'll have a better sense of the pandemic impact then in a couple of months. So it may change our attitude about things. But can we say that the anticipated date is October 15th and that we will have another meeting
On the fourth Wednesday of October, right?
Of September, you mean?
Of September, and then October. Yeah, the fourth, are we going back to the
Yes.
fourth Wednesday?
the 23rd of September. Do you want to have it
September.
September, excuse me. Do you want to have it closer to town meeting or is that sufficient?
That's good.
Well, that doesn't give people a lot of time if we have an October 15th deadline for new applications, or are we simply going to?
That is the deadline, the October 15th.
Okay, so Mary, between now and our next meeting, we will assume that you will do the marketing for our next round. With
Yeah.
October 15th being
Yeah,
the.
I'll be putting that out there. And I think, the people that use us or know about us, know that that's.
Right, but we want to, we want
Yeah,
to.
advertise like we did.
More inclusive, not, not just the old gang.
Oh, no, I'm saying the people that know have
Right.
in mind and others will advertise.
Okay, so the date of the next meeting will be September 23rd at when?
Regular time and
9 o'clock?
9 a.m. on a Wednesday, Zoom,
Okay,
Courtney to set up.
Let me just check quickly when the Jewish holidays are really quick.
Oh, right.
Hold on just a second. Let me just Google it.
um,
Googleize it.
it's not then, Rhonda. I'm looking at my calendar. It starts on the 20th.
18th to the
28th.
20th is Rosh Hashanah, and then Yom Kippur would be a week after. Thank you.
28th, right. Okay, so tentatively, the next meeting of the CPC is scheduled for September 23rd at 9 o'clock. We still have July 22nd as a tentative date, should it be necessary, and we will notify you in advance, at least 48 hours in advance, of whether we have that meeting or not. Courtney, I don't know if you're still there, but if we're still doing Zoom, which I assume we will be, is September 23rd at 9 o'clock open?
She gave us that. She gave us that already.
Yeah.
Oh, she did? I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
Oh, September.
September 20, yeah.
If you're not meeting on the 22nd, I can just move that meeting time, that meeting information to September, and it's fine. It's no big
We'll
deal.
let you know about the 22nd, but the 23rd of September is available at 9 o'clock.
Yep, it should be.
Great. And
What time is the July 22nd tentative meeting scheduled for?
9 a.m.
July 22nd?
22nd, 9 a.m.
Yep.
Okay.
But I'll talk to Peter first.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Any other reports on projects or any other concerns that people have? Lots of other concerns that people have, but anything with respect to CPC?
I just think it's amazing how creative the act was, that it can step in an
Yeah,
emergency.
yeah.
It was quite an astounding thing for Massachusetts to do. So creative and wide-ranging, but I really hope it can help us all through this particular time.
I also just really wanted to thank Gary and Elaine for everything that you do for housing and how heartfelt it is. And I just really appreciate your efforts.
Lee does all the work. I just take the credit.
good. That's a,
Well said.
may I move that we adjourn?
Sounds good. I hope everyone stays healthy and relatively safe.
Likewise, yes.
Yeah,
Enjoy.
Bye-bye.
You will.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Leave. But I didn't leave. Leave me.